Shut up and sit down.
By all means, go for it. Have fun. Just leave me alone.
People are coming together more and more and more and more as the government has been failing us more and more.
I'm against being shitty to people.
You can't research your way into understanding somebody.
One way or another, I'd rather have the fight now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Fight for Liberty Live. Today, hopefully, we won't have any sound issues like we did last night, and we'll have a great show. And I'm actually really excited about today because I'm getting to talk to one of the people who is most responsible for me still being a member of the Libertarian Party and part of this movement. So I'm excited. First, we're going to talk about some of our sponsors because we always do this first, and I know that you love them. Nugg of Knowledge is a wonderful organization run by libertarians where you can get all of your favorite cannabis products, whether that's CBD, CBG, Delta 8 THC. I think we're adding Delta 10 here pretty soon. We've got edibles, teas, flour, cartridges, you name it, we've got it. So going over to nuggofknowledge.com, you can use promo code F4L and you get 10% off your first order. And that helps out the show, the network, and other awesome libertarians that you know and love. Second, last but not least, my good friend Harrison Kemp. He's running for governor of Maine, which is an apt sponsor for this show since we're talking to another gubernatorial candidate. So go on over to kempformaine.com/fightforliberty if you'd like to help out Mr. Harrison Kemp. He is, in my opinion, one of the strongest candidates we've got going this year. He's already got a lot of key endorsements. He's in a fairly small state. This is a state that already believes liberty things. So go check him out. If you want to donate, go to this link. If you don't, just Kemp for Maine. That part is good. And check out what he's running on. But today, I am joined by an awesome person. He ran for governor in 2018 and again this year for the state of New York, my home state. So please welcome to the show, Mr. Larry Sharpe.
I made it,
sir.
I made it. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's good to see you again. A long time no see. Not really.
Like 3 days or something. I forgot when. It was recent.
What's crazy is it's actually been almost 2 weeks, and it doesn't feel like that's logical.
No, it actually feels like 9 months, but it's fine because when you're punishing yourself like we do, time doesn't really mean anything.
Time is relative,
yes,
completely.
Absolutely, yes.
So let's start off talking about South by Southwest, since that's the last time we saw each other. And I haven't actually talked about it on my show yet because this is only the second episode I've done since then. So I want to talk first about the panel that you got to do. And from your perspective, tell the people like who it was with, what you guys were talking about.
I'm supposed to remember who was on the panel. Now you're asking a lot. That was like 5 years ago. Anyway, no. So we had a panel that was what I thought was interesting, which was the idea that we want to break the duopoly, right? And you would think, why in the world would South by Southwest care about that? It's because the timing is right in general. This is the first time now that I can, since I've been caring about politics at all years, since we actually know that there are more people who are interested in politics, meaning registered voters, who are actually not assigned to a party, right? So there are less and less people accepting the two main parties, Republicans, Democrats, and more saying they're either a third party or independent or none of the above or something like that. So I think that's a big deal. And South by Southwest is seeing that and wanted to talk about breaking duopoly. So they brought on third parties. They brought on Libertarian Party and the Working Families Party to talk about those issues. Sadly, the Working Families Party is not really a third party. I mean, it kind of is, but it's not really. It's basically a party that's trying to make Democrats more left, which is not a bad thing. Well, depending on who you are. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just not a real third party. It's a party that's the Working Families Party is actually meant to strengthen, in their eyes, a Democratic Party. So that's the difference. A Libertarian Party is an actual third party trying to fight against them and run all their own candidates and be an actual competitor to the two main parties. And that's why we're the largest party in the country that isn't the two main. So the conversations were interesting. We tried. I was on with the one, the only Spike Cohen. When it comes to libertarians named Spike, he's definitely in my top 50. So he was there, And we were together talking about things, and we were trying. I was trying hard. You watched, not do policy. Talk only about the system and not about policy. And the woman there, what's her name? Start with an N.
Yeah, I'm spacing on it right now too.
Her, the lovely woman there, she was very much concerned about, policy, and also something else, which also you find in too many organizations, talking about the work she's doing. And because she's working hard, that makes it good or just or righteous. And it doesn't. Lots of bad people work hard and they do bad things. So yes, her name was, thank you. And the comments come up. Nalini. Yes.
Thanks,
thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Dennis, for remembering that. Yes. Thank you. Yes. He was there too. So many people talk about working hard as if because you work hard, that means you're being effective or that means you're doing great. They're not necessarily related. You could do a whole lot of work doing stuff that doesn't make any sense, or that's actually bad, right? Evil people work hard too.
Stalin put in a good amount of work.
A lot of his minions worked extra time.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not saying she's a Stalinist. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is
working families parties close. Just kidding.
I mean, I didn't say that's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is she spoke a lot about working hard, and I had to actually tell her, if you remember, I'm not putting down your work. That isn't what I'm putting down. I'm sure you're working hard. And I've seen many activists work really hard. The question is, are they being effective in creating the change they want to create? And she talked about all the problems. We got all these problems and we're working on these problems. And my response, remember, was, so it's not working because you still have all these problems.
Right.
So you're working hard. I get it. But you can see it's not working because you still have all these problems. So as you're yelling about all these problems, how about I have an answer to fix them? She's like, no, my activists matter. They do matter. I just wish they'd come on my side and be a bit more effective. So the idea was to kind of break that, to break the duopoly. What I liked about it is it was a place that normally doesn't care about that kind of thing, but we had a receptive audience. They wanted to hear about it. They're involved with it. I think more and more people are thinking that way. It's one of the reasons why, I have the Forward Party endorsement. That's why I'm working for the Unite Party endorsement, because more and more people are saying, I don't care if it's left or it's right. It just can't be these two parties who just don't seem to care.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about those other two parties a little bit later on. But I want to mention, because what was interesting to me about the panel is going in, that room was about 10% libertarian, like 80% working families party, and then a couple of people in between. Like, they brought a lot of the people that were there. And walking away, I think the room was close to 70% libertarian, or at least a lot close. Like, you guys turned a lot of heads and made a lot of sense. And I think you guys did an amazing job at talking to her in a way that, like you said, you're not tearing down her work. You're not tearing down her activists. You're not tearing down anything that she's put her life to. Just saying, like, hey, maybe we can work together. Maybe there's a better shared goal here.
Well, there were two pieces to that. One of them was I was showing that, which is why the audience was hearing that. Nalini was not impressed. She was not. Literally, I'd asked her, like, look, there are certain things that we're 100% simpatico on. Let's talk. I reached out and I said, hey, let me know if you have someone. I'll send libertarians to come to your events if they're about things that we completely agree upon, like, criminal justice reform, things like that. And she was like, nope. The people around her were like, yeah, that's a good idea. She was like, nope. So I think she has decided that we're not really compatible, and that's okay. Yeah. What are you going to do? That's how it works sometimes. But there's a second piece of this, and that is I actually met someone, more than one person, who knew me, who wasn't in that panel, who recognized me outside. So that's also important. It means people are seeing what we're doing, like right now. David, what we're doing now, people are watching this stuff going, oh, that's that David Fite guy, right? They're doing that, right? That's that Larry Sharpe guy. Oh, I saw him. So this stuff is working. So that's a great part. That we were at someplace like South by Southwest, which traditionally is just a music fest, traditionally. And now it's people like, oh, we know those libertarians. it was a very good panel.
Yeah. Afterwards, wandering around and just kind of hanging out and talking to people, it was insane how many libertarians we met. Like small L, most of them, but almost everyone that I talked to there was more libertarian than I'd say half the people who are part of the party. And you're right, like you got recognized quite a few times. I think you got recognized more times than Spike did, which I also found quite amusing.
Spike spends too much time around libertarians. I don't.
That's also true.
Yes.
What I really found amusing is that for the following 3 days, I wore your badge around South by Southwest, and none of the security guards could tell the difference between your face and mine, which I think they might need to get a pay reduction or something.
Well, no, it's the libertarian, right? The reality of it is, for most people who are good artists, right, whether that's music or anything else, if you're a good artist, you tend to be anti-establishment, right? That is what often comes with the territory, right? If you're going to just do what the establishment does, you're probably not going to be a good artist, whether that's music or art or dance or whatever it is. If you're just going to do what the establishment says, you're not going to get very far, right? So you by default, to be talented in that regard, almost always have to have that kind of rebellion in you. So naturally, they're going to be more libertarian until they make it. Once they make it, well, this is regulatory capture now. Yeah. Now I've made it, so now I like regulation. Right now I'm on top of the heap. And you know what? Let's you young people, why don't you go away? So the newer people who are up and coming, they tend to be very libertarian. It's the establishment ones who are.
Yeah, me and Joanna Jurgens stayed there for another couple of days, and just we were just bouncing around the different houses and the parties and I don't think we went to a single another panel or anything like that. We were just kind of hanging out with people and, just sitting down next to someone at a bar and striking up conversation. They'd usually ask why we were there, and we tell them about the panel. And then, usually within 4 or 5 sentences, I had almost everyone I talked to, and especially with Joanna's help, we had people saying things like, "Oh yeah, I consider myself liberty minded," or "Oh, hey, I almost voted for Jorgensen last year," or, something like that. Like they were all extremely receptive. And then we'd like push them on the issue. And even if we got to like vaccines or something like that, they were pro-vaccine. Maybe mandates are a thing, but I don't think we should force people to do any,
yes.
They have that mentality. They actually get it on the philosophical level, not the political level, not the policy crap, but they get the philosophy of do no harm, take no stuff. They get that part.
I agree completely. I think they do try. They understand, why am I messing with this person when I don't want to be messed with, right? That's kind of what they're saying, right? I don't want to be messed with, so why am I messing with this person? And they might not think that's libertarian, but that's really libertarian.
It's the crux of it.
Yes.
I have a problem with people that call themselves libertarians, but you can tell that they are so libertarian that they want to, ramrod libertarianism down other people's throats. And it's like, it's still not, you don't quite get it. You're almost there. So it's almost refreshing to see the people that get that part more. I don't even care about the policy.
The reality of this is, right, if we really understand the movement, which is what I've been saying, which is we are the most open tent of all the tents. Because you don't have to convert to be one of us, right? You can be super liberal, you can be super conservative, just don't force your views on others, right? If you notice, in the libertarian world, in a libertarian world, or the one that's closer towards libertarianism, people like the Amish are just going to be fine, right? Religious minorities, gender and sexual minorities, they're all going to be just fine in our world, right? Some people might not like any given minority, but then as long as they don't bother them and leave them alone, don't harass them, don't attack them, don't take away their rights, whatever, you'll survive in your area, right? Even if you want to be a terrible racist, you'll be in your racist enclave, and there'll be no people who aren't like you in your little enclave or whatever, right? I mean, in our the more libertarian world. But whenever you move to any form of authoritarian world, left, right, whatever it is, the first people persecuted are minorities. Always, regardless of what culture you're in, regardless of what country you're in, what nation, what color of skin, insert thing, whatever it is. If you're going down authoritarianism, guaranteed minorities are the first to get attacked, the first to get persecuted. So yeah, if you just leave people alone, it's amazing what you can achieve.
Yeah. I like that you brought up that, left and both, whether it's left or right authoritarianism, it's still the minorities that get targeted first.
Absolutely.
Because 100% true. And yeah, I think a lot of people understand that what we've been ramping up towards for the last, I'd say decades, some people would probably argue 2 or 3 decades of just each side just strengthening the executive branches and all of these executive orders and all this other the focus towards national politics over state and local politics, all of this authoritarianism that's been conjured up and steamrolled for the last many years. People are realizing that there's no happy end to this trajectory. No country gets really authoritarian and then just, okay, all right, that was cool, we're good. And then just slowly backs back
just becomes so authoritarian, now we're perfect.
Right.
That never happens ever. We've just achieved the exact amount of rules, regulations, and prisons that will just get us just enough gulags. Perfect. Now we have that socialist utopia that I've been telling you about for decades, David. We just needed 4,022 gulags. That was the number. Now we can stop having gulags.
There we go. Yes. I'm just going to cut just that and be the promo from
There we go. That's what we needed. 4,022 gulags. Now we're good. We can stop. That's the number. We didn't know. Now we know.
There we go.
Yes. So, no, you're right. In fact, what always happens is one of two things: civil war or external war.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it ends. Every time.
We're ramping up to both simultaneously at the moment.
Well, they often go together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because as any authoritarian government finds itself, in trouble internally, it can't fix it internally, right? You come to a point where you've spent so much time with the ideology that you've used. The ideology actually doesn't matter, right? The people at the top of almost any ideology don't actually believe the ideology. They simply use it to be on control, right? So you're in control. So, what ideology you guys believe? Is it a religion? Is it a government? Is it whatever? Okay, we'll believe that, right? That'll take us to the top, whatever that is. Well, now you've talked the talk for so long that the system is so broken that even you can't fix it.
Right.
So you realize you can't fix your system, but you really want to keep grifting as long as you can possibly grift. So what do? You create an external enemy. See, it's not that I suck, David. It's those guys overseas that suck really bad. And all the problems you're having, it's not because I'm a terrible leader and my ideology is garbage. No, I know it looks that way, but no. The reality of it is these people over here who you've never heard of before and who have nothing to do with you, they're the ones hurting you. So let me send all your children over there to die and be wounded and maimed, so that when they come back, you're mad about that. You're not mad at me because I'm now your avenger. So I'm going to send more of your children over there to fight so I can grift for decades. That's my goal. And I'll pay for my grifting with the blood of your children. And that's how that begins to work. But eventually people go, you know what? I don't want to send my kids to die anymore. In fact, all those guys who came back, you taught them how to fight. Yeah, that was dumb. Because now they're going to come after you. And I think you see that in many cases. I think you see that happening from the Roman Empire to the Russian Empire.
Yeah.
Right? The Romans trained barbarians and the barbarians came back to get them. The Russians trained their own people and they came back to get them. Right? So I think you see that consistently.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we're heading, which is sad because I don't want it to happen.
Yeah. I mean, all war is bad, even like revolutionary and civil. I definitely think that if any more countries get involved with what's going on in the Ukraine, and especially if anyone even thinks about using the term draft or conscription, you take away the risk versus reward balance of revolution as soon as you're like, we're going to make you fight and possibly die for something. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to fight and die for my home, not for some other country millions of miles away. Like once you say, I'm going to draft you into the military and you're going to fight and possibly die regardless of what you choose, civil war is the most logical option from there.
Well, why would you start a draft in America? What's the need?
I mean,
there's no need.
There isn't.
No. All governments have to do to win is put people in uniform. It doesn't have to be a military uniform. It doesn't matter what it is. They can be the police force, the fire department, the Department of Buildings, the DEC. It doesn't matter, right? If you notice, every government agency always has uniform. Because once you have a uniform, now you're literally announcing to the world, I'm part of the system. You're not gonna retreat from the system. First thing that most people do is they find some kind of uniform, what that uniform is. Mao had his blue shirt, right? The blue jacket, the jumpsuit and hat. That was his uniform, right? The Nazis
That's an
had
interesting one.
Yes, the Nazis had the brown shirts, the Italians had the black shirts. It doesn't matter. They got the uniform. They put the uniform on, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. So they'll find a way to put a uniform on. As long as the uniform is on, you don't have to be fighting overseas.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and as long as people have the uniform on, are being paid, it's really hard to get someone to fight against their employer. That's hard. I mean, you're wearing the uniform and you're going to fight against it. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
So they can just find uniforms and badges, by the way, because badges make you feel very important.
Right.
Badges are critical. So you have to have uniforms and badges. Now you're set.
Just give them a little bit of autonomy, or not autonomy, but like special privilege and authority, and you're great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I maybe they'll draft, but I doubt it. I feel like a draft, there's enough Americans who are lost in general, particularly young men, who will volunteer just because they're lost. Right? I mean, I was one of them in 1985. That's when I joined in 85, and I was a lost 17-year-old. So there's enough lost young men to keep our military filled.
Yeah.
I think there are.
For
and
sure.
they just give bonus. They'll say, join to go, I don't know, fight whoever is the person we're fighting this time, whoever's the bad guy of the day. They'll just use that, and they'll just use, I don't know. We'll give you free college or something, right? To do something. We'll give you free useless college that you'll never use and learn nothing. And when you come back missing arms and legs, we'll put you in a classroom for 4 or 6 years. That's a good reason to join. And sadly, people who are in trouble in bad spots and lost will join up for the free college that they'll have to literally surrender their legs for.
That's almost what got me to join.
There we go.
It was the free college and the GI Bill afterwards and the training. Honestly, part of the logic in my mind was that I could use the regimen and the strictness of the lifestyle, because I'm kind of a anti-authority, kind of free-spirited person. I don't have a lot of that like self-discipline that military would have forced into my brain. So that was a lot of the reasoning for me. But I talked myself out of it at 17, just before I went to college. I was like, let's go to college first instead.
Well, what I would say is a lot of people will say how much, the military is not good or whatever the case may be. Here's what I'll say. It's not for everybody. It was right for me. I was lost, and the Marine Corps made me a much better person, a much better man. I'm very happy I joined. I totally worked for me. It was did I ever tell you my story on how I joined the Marines?
I think we had that conversation at the house in Austin.
So yes, I won't bore you again then. But yes, so I was definitely looking for I was looking for something just like that.
Yeah. So I want to shift gears a little bit to your gubernatorial race, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here a little bit, because I talk a lot on the show about how there's better things to be doing and more useful things to do than to run for office.
Yep.
I think that your race is an exception to that personally, but I'm kind of want your take on why you're running and why you think this is a good use of your time and energy.
No, I think you're completely right. We should not just be running like we always run. It hasn't worked in 50 years, and it's a stupid idea, and we do it all the time. But I'm not going to change that idea. People just don't hear me. I've been saying it for literally years. The idea of just running to run is not only not good, it is harmful. It hurts us. But the party doesn't want to listen. The party is like, we're going to run and show people we have to have a name on a line. No, you don't. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Well, it's good branding. No, it isn't. No one knows who you are. No one pays attention. If you're Think of all the times we've literally just thrown money, time, and energy in the garbage because we have to run somebody. We've got to have someone for senator. We've got to have somebody for Congress. No, we don't. Nobody cares. It was a colossal waste of time, money, and energy. Why did you waste your time doing that? Well,
because 0.5%, Larry, 0.5%,
which is useless. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It has zero value. In fact, it has negative value because you have volunteer burnout, donor burnout, and not just those two burnout, but you also have now people who are running who think that's how you run. You're setting the example that we always get 2%. We don't raise any money. I think it's okay. And then people talk trash. Yeah, I ran 3 times for this. Great. How much money did you raise? None. You literally did nothing. You would have actually been better off if you had helped somebody else run.
Right.
Or if you had even better off starting a podcast. Seriously. You would have done more good if you had started a podcast, because at least somebody would have heard you. Nobody heard you when you were running for Congress, but at least podcast, somebody would have heard you.
You'll at least get like maybe 3 followers that aren't already your friends.
Correct. Somebody will randomly, as if going through Facebook, go, who's that guy? Somebody will do that. So you literally would have made more impact running a podcast. You should run because there is some impact to your run. If there's no impact to your run, you should not run. You should also run if you can build a team. If you can't build a team, you should not run. You should also run if you can do things like take time away to actually go out and campaign. If you can't campaign, you should not run. Now, I am absolutely the minority in this party. Most people think I'm completely wrong, that I have no idea what I'm talking about. And I get it. I'm not going to change their minds. I'm still right. That hasn't changed. I'm still correct. I am demonstrably correct. Right? There's no doubt. But it doesn't matter. So that's my view. People think I run all the time. I've only run once before. When I thought there could be impact.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't run. I spend my time practicing what I preach, raising money for other people. You see me do it constantly. So I support others when they're running, because I would like other people to stop running so much and instead support others running. So I'm practicing what I'm preaching. I am being the change that I want to see in the world. It's not working. But
I mean, I think
I keep doing it.
I genuinely think it is.
I'm glad. I hope so.
I think that at least this year, I've had a lot of conversation, and like the end of last year, a lot of this year, I've been having a lot of conversations with people in the party that echo some of these sentiments, where people are finally coming around to the fact that the 3 things you can do in this party aren't just candidate, campaign manager, and county chair.
Correct. Yes.
Or the other 3 positions on a county executive board. You need a social media manager for campaigns. We need graphic designers. We need video editors. We need photographers.
Also just need activists, right? And in my view, and again, people disagree with me completely, but I think the party and the movement are separate. The movement is a larger element, and the party, is the larger piece, and the party is an element of the movement.
Yep.
The movement can survive without the party. The party cannot survive without the movement. However, the movement is stronger with the party than without it.
Agreed.
Right? So you want to have a party and a movement. Not everybody should be in the party, right? You have to want to be part of the party, understand politics, want to be in politics, want to play that nasty game. If you don't, you can stay in the movement. No worries. And still do great things. Activists are not candidates. Sadly, we have forgotten that. Oh, sorry. We've never realized that. We've never realized that in our party. They are 2 different things. They're an activist hat and a candidate hat. An activist's job is to get people to think and care about issues or ideas or concepts. That's their job. And they may often do different things. They may do stunts. They may write op-eds. They may do protests. They can do all types of things. Their language can be crazy and insane if they want it to be. They've got to do what it takes to get people to care about the issue. But a candidate's different. A candidate has to have solutions. That's the difference. And we are really not good at that.
Right.
As a party, we think candidate is just another way of being an activist, which it should not be. Most of the candidates who are only activists and act only as an activist, they don't do very well. You want to have candidates who can be candidates. Does that mean you can also be an activist? Of course. Lots of people are both. Of course, you can do both. The issue is you've got to understand that when you're the candidate, that's how you have to work and think. Right now, I'm a candidate. Let me focus on that. I'm activist secondary.
Yeah.
I'm not running anymore. I can be an activist. So you've got to decide which one you are at any given time. And we're not very good at that. I'm trying to show that. If you know, whenever I'm playing a candidate game, I focus heavily on solutions. Very rarely do I use rhetoric. Very rarely do I even talk about libertarianism. Very rarely. I'm all about solutions. Now, people might say, well, Larry, it's because you're more practical. And no, because I know what I'm doing. I've decided what role that I think I'm best playing. I'm good at running for office. I'm good at building a team. I'm good at raising money. That's what I'm good at. So I focus on what I'm good at. Not everybody's good at that. And other things I am absolutely not good at. Ask my team. They will tell you. There are many things I'm not good at. So I don't do the things I'm not good at. I focus on the things I am good at. And one of them is doing things like showing up and saying stuff. That I'm good at.
You're great at that part.
Yes. So someone says, Larry, show up there and say stuff. Yes, I got that down. I'm good at that. Some people are bad at that. If you're bad at that, don't be a candidate or get better at it and then become a candidate.
Right.
Either of those two.
Yeah, if you can't show up and say stuff, I think that's like the first like big deal breaker. Definitely don't be a candidate.
Correct.
But I love the differentiation that you made between the movement and the party, because I always refer to the party as the unfortunate tiny piece of the movement where we have to file a bunch of paperwork and follow a bunch of bylaws and Robert's rules and a bunch of crap that no one actually enjoys.
Correct.
I'll never understand the people who try to, and this really, it isn't a slight comment or something. I don't understand people that try to infiltrate the party to try to make it do something other than the party. Cause it's like, you would have so much better of a time having just done that, like over here by yourself.
You can create your own group. You can create your own pack. You can create your own club. You can just do you. There are many ways you can make impact in this movement having nothing to do with the party. And lots of people do it. You see people out there moving stuff, getting stuff done, and they're like, the party, what's that? And that's fine. But to be forward, I'm not good at that.
To be forward.
Right? I'm not good at that. I'm good at what I do. So I try to stay in my lane, what I'm good at. So I don't dismiss the other people. Other people do what they're good at, as they should. So yes, you're correct. You can go all over the place, do all types of things. And then some people don't want to help at all. They're too busy with their life. They're too busy with their world. That's fine too. But if you can support somebody in some way, it matters. And support in today's world for a third party, libertarians obviously, but any other third party too, can just be as simple as literally as you scroll on your phone through their stuff, clicking that like button and putting a comment and scrolling on. Because every like and every comment gets those algorithms going. So even that, if you're that busy that you just can't deal with this stuff, just do that. It's enough. It's something. If you can donate, that's awesome. If you can volunteer, even better if you can. If you can't, no worries. Click that like, that comment, that share button, and move on. Still helps.
Yeah. And then show up and vote.
Yes.
That's the thing like the other two parties have millions of people who are completely detached from the party that all they do is they show up and they pull the lever for the R's or the D's. We need that too. Like we need just apolitical follower like members that, maybe show up for the annual convention at their state and vote libertarian. And like that's the entirety of
I'd actually rather them not show up, just vote.
Sure. Yeah.
Just vote. We don't just show up and vote. I completely agree. Show up and vote. That's it. Yeah. So, yes. No, I agree with you. And we do have a chunk of that in New York. I mean, if you remember, we only had like 7,000 registered libertarians in the state when I first started running.
Yep.
And we only got
a lot more.
Yeah. And we only got about 3 times that as votes whenever we ran. Well, we had about 30,000 before they shut us all down. And I got about 3 times again. So whatever number we have registered, we'll get about 3 times the vote, right? Give or take, right? We'll get about 3 times the vote. So I think that's the goal. If we can get enough people to register, well, imagine if we had 100,000 registered libertarians in the state. That's 300,000 votes every single year. Now you might go, well, Larry, that's not enough to win. You're right. It's not. but it's enough to have impact and that people have to pay attention.
Yeah.
Right. You know that right now we've been through 2 separate Zogby polls. And in both Zogby polls, I polled at 6% twice in a row, which means that's real in my eyes. Or that's a real number.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 6%, let's say I only pull half of that, 3%, right? I pull 3%. The Republicans, Democrats care about 3%.
Yeah.
So they got to listen to me. They got to hear something. They got to try to get rid of me. They got to do something, right? They have to pay attention to me. You might go, but Larry, that's just 3%. Yeah, but in a close race, that matters.
Yeah. We saw that in Georgia last year.
100%. That matters. So now if I'm going to keep going and let's say I start pulling at 10, 20%. Well, now I'm going to pull even more points. Well, they have to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the issue. But the most important piece, if I'm still growing and doing well, all I have to do is wait for Kathy Hochul to make a mistake. She makes a bad mistake. All those votes come to me. They're not going to the Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Democrats in New York hate Republicans. If they're not going to vote for Hochul, they're going to do, if they're mad at Hochul, they do one of 3 things. One, hold their nose and vote for Hochul anyway, because they're a Democrat and they're going to just, blue no matter who. That's option 1. Option 2, they stay home. You know what? I don't like Hochul. I'm staying home. I'm not voting. Whatever. It's my protest vote. I'm staying home. Or number 3, they vote for me.
Yep.
That's the only 3 options. There's no option when they go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to vote for Republicans. This is New York State. That's not how that works. That's not how that works in this state. That's not how that works. Right? You saw that with California, Newsom and his recall. They hated him.
Mm-hmm.
They were mad at him. He was in trouble until the Republicans made the biggest mistake they could have possibly made. They put a face on the Republican.
Yep.
They went, Larry Elder. And I went, oh, no, we hate Republicans worse than anything else. So we'll just keep voting we'll vote for our guy. We hate our guy too, but we hate the Republicans more. So we'll just vote for our guy.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest issue. That's going to happen in New York too. There's no way the Republican wins. That's impossible. Democrats are not going to vote for him. No matter what lie he tells you.
Mm-hmm.
The Republican savior is not coming. Not in New York State.
Never.
Not coming to New York State. Not never. You never know. The state might change at one point, but not in the next 5 years. That's for sure. Probably not in the next 20.
Yeah.
I mean, in reality, a Republican hasn't won a statewide election in this state in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Hasn't won senator, governor, lieutenant governor, nothing in 20 years.
Yeah.
And the state's just
Spitzer was the last one, right?
Pataki.
Spitzer was a Democrat. You're right.
Democrat. Yep.
Yeah.
Last one was Pataki, 2002, 20 years ago. Last time.
Yeah.
Not happening. And Republicans been saying how this is the year for 20 years. It's not the year.
It's like the Cleveland Browns or something. Like, oh, we had a great offseason and we're coming back and it's gonna be our. No, it's not.
It's not your year.
I think Trump, if he had tried and like deployed a legitimate plan and actually tried, I think he could have flipped New York in 2020.
In 2020, really?
Purely because of
why 2020?
I think the mixture between turning out upstate votes in a way that doesn't normally happen, plus him being from New York, plus just the rampant hatred of Biden amongst the actual leftists in New York, like the people who actually are left of center, unlike most of the Democrats. I think he could have done something if he had actually like tried.
No way. Not in 2020. 2020, the only thing that kept Democrats together was their hatred of Trump.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only thing. I mean, Democrats to this day aren't united, right? And they weren't united then. The only thing that kept Democrats together in 2020 was their hatred of Trump. The only thing that could have changed that was if someone like Bernie had won the nomination. Because then all the mainstream Democrats would have been afraid and voted for Trump.
That's true.
Right? Mainstream Democrats loved Biden because he goes back to the old ways of us being corporatists. All right. Yeah. Right. They're fine with that. Right. But the people, you're right, who were really left of center, they didn't like Biden. They hate, you can see it now. They hate him now, but they hated Trump far worse. And this goes back to, fine, I hate them both, but I hate Trump more. That's what most of the very far left thought.
Yeah.
I think that's changing now. And I think in 2016, people didn't see him that way. They saw Trump as the outsider. If you remember what happened in 2016, there were a lot of people who were Bernie bros who left Bernie and went to Trump.
Yeah.
Because they just wanted a rebel. And in 2016, people didn't see Trump as a right Republican. Oh, they just saw him as a rebel guy. This is this crazy guy who's not establishment. So a lot of people who are anti-establishment ran to Trump in 2016. I think in 2020, the media had painted Trump as a right-wing nut. So I think many of the people on the left were like, nope, he's crazy, he's racist, he's all these things. So at least what I heard, right? And
Yeah.
the funny thing is, I would actually go to people in New York City and maybe talk about a Trump policy. And they might go, oh, that's not a bad policy. And I'll go, it's Trump policy. That policy sucks.
Yep.
They hated it because it was Trump's policy, not because the policy was bad.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
like, hey, Trump, doesn't matter.
Everything he says is dumb. Even if
whatever
it's
he
gun
says.
control and expanding welfare and
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. He could say, I'm writing you a check with $10,000. They'll take it and go, you still suck. they would take it and go, you still
They'd
suck.
still take it though, for
Yeah,
sure.
they would take it. Oh, yeah, they take it. They just still yell at him anyway. They would.
Mhm.
Of course. Yes.
So we talked a little bit when we were at the house at South by Southwest about how like the changes that you made towards the end of your last campaign and kind of rolling them into this campaign. What are some of the biggest changes people will notice, and what are some of the returning crowd favorites?
Well, most of the policies from 2018 have not changed at all. Most of them are exactly the same. The state was broken then, the state's broken now. So I thought they were good ideas then. They're still good ideas. So it hasn't changed. So I'm happy with those policies. I've added more, obviously, because the state is even more broken. So when it comes to addition, number one, last time I ran only as Libertarian. This time I'm running as Libertarian and also trying to run as also a Forward Party member and also as a Unite New York Party member. We're hoping we get all three lines if we can. If anyone's watching and not in New York has fusion voting, which means you can actually be listed 3 times on the ballot. We're going to try to make that happen. We don't know. Forward is concerned about, the time, energy, and money to make it happen. They may or may not do it. We don't know. Unite may or may not endorse at the end. Again, they don't know if they'll do it at the end. We'll see. They're all trying to put it together. The way, as you know, New York State has put it together, it is really hard to get on the ballot. I'm going to have to average 2,000 signatures every single day for 35 days. That is really hard. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to get all 3 of them. So that's number one. We're creating an actual coalition, right? Which we didn't have before. So that's step one. Step two, we're considering putting together what I'm calling the NIST, the NYSST. It is the New York State Social Trust. It is a trust that is going to begin to pay for some of the things that New York State has gone out of its way to destroy. So we're trying to make it to where now, for example, we could pay for education. I like the trust. We're going to take about $80 billion and set aside from our taxes to put aside to create a fund to that would be a dividend-based fund that's not debt. So you purchase your coins. Yeah, I use the word. Purchase your coins or your shares, whatever the case may be, and you're buying them, and you're going to get a dividend from that. So it's not debt. You're buying it to get a dividend. What does that mean? Is the average person going to buy this? Probably not. Who will probably buy it? Permanent capital, a great place to park permanent capital. Large organizations put their money there. Pension funds put your money there because you're getting a dividend. And the best part is the money you get from it, because it's New York State revenue, is tax deductible. So it's a tax haven. So a lot of the larger permanent capital companies will put their money in this as a tax haven and to raise a bunch of money, right? Because they're getting the dividends. It's safe money, a safe way of putting it. As we put that in that money, we hope to raise $900 billion in 3 years. We do that, it'll be one of the largest trusts on the planet, and that will pay for education easily. New York State, if you pay for education directly from Albany, several things happen. Number one, the money now follows the kid by default. Wherever the kid goes, the money goes. Yet on top of that, a credit for any kid who wants to either go homeschool or private school, $4,000 credit. So you allow the kid to go to homeschool or to private school with a $4,000 credit, but still use the facilities of the district. This way you keep your community together. So your kid wants to go to homeschool, but also wants to play football at the high school. That's fine. Your kid wants to go to private school, but it still wants to be in a chess club. They can do that. It's fine. It allows private schools not have to create all the extracurricular activity if they don't want to. Right? They can still use the extracurricular activities at the actual district if they choose to. It gives them flexibility also. But look, some private schools might want to run it all and have all their own stuff, all their own curricular. They can do whatever they want. Curriculum, they might want to do that. So that's step number one. So money follows the kid. more localization in schools. We lose federal funds, and we lose any other state funds, grants, and such, which means we lose strings that are attached. The strings aren't attached. A lot of administrators can go away. Teachers become freer. Teachers can now teach. Teachers can get raises. We can buy more stuff. Everybody wins. Happier teachers, happier everything. But I'm still not done. Once that happens, now if we're paying from Albany, what's the need for school tax? There is none. School tax goes away. When school tax goes away, the average New Yorker, their property tax drops by about 50%. 50% drop in property tax. Now, you know what happens? Rents stabilize, if not drop. So that means that now the youth can stay. The youth can actually stay in New York and not pack up and have to leave because they can't afford it. Or better,
that would be nice.
Yes, it would be nice. Or better, not have to live with their parents. Live on their own if they want to, right? Some kids don't want to, some do, whatever. They can actually go do that, right? If they want to, they can go do whatever they need to do in those regards. Even better though, with your property that's cut in half, you now, if you're a senior, maybe you can stay here and retire here, because we're adding on top of this something else. And that is, if you are 65 years or older and you have owned a home in New York State for 15 years or more, the second you hit 65, your property tax goes down 5%. Every year until 85, no property tax. Now you start lowering your property tax. Why? Because as your property tax lowers, it increases the odds of you staying in your home. So you might go, Larry, we're going to lose all that money. No, if parents stay in their homes longer, two things happen. One, they spend their pensions here and not in Florida or Arizona. So the state makes more money because pensions are being spent here. Social Security is being spent here, not in Florida or Texas or Arizona. The second piece, they're now not going to nursing homes, which is paid for by Medicare, which is paid for by the county and the state. So we save money on that also. It keeps, actually, the best part is, it keeps families together. You might say, but Larry, someone's older. They may not want to stay in their house. They may want to have an apartment. They may want to live with their kid. Awesome. Go live with your kid. No worry. They get half of that. They get 2.5% on down as you get older. So now even your kid gets a break to their taxes. Now, if your kid gets a break to their taxes and we get half tax, you know what? You might decide to keep mom or dad with you. You might not put them in a home. You might not send them down to Florida. You might keep them. Families here together, spending money here, keeping people happy. Happy New Yorkers changes everything.
Well, I guess that's one of the returning crowd favorites from last time, the Happy New Yorkers.
100%. Happiness matters. Happiness matters. People laugh about it, but it's true. Happiness matters. Happy New Yorkers don't commit crimes.
Yeah.
Happy New Yorkers grow their families here. Happy New Yorkers grow their businesses or their career here. Happy New Yorkers go to school here. Happy New Yorkers don't leave.
Yeah.
Right? Happy retired New Yorkers stay here and spend their pension and their Social Security here. And that's the issue. Look, we have a lot of New Yorkers who get a great pension and or have Social Security. Good for you. I'm glad you've earned it. Awesome. Now spend it here. Right? I'm not mad at those who leave. I get why they leave. It's our fault as a state for making it so, such a hostile environment that they leave. But I want them to want to stay in New York and spend their pensions here. Put it back into our economy. You got to spend it somewhere. Spend it here.
Yeah, I'm on my way out of the state for most of the reasons that you're mentioning. I mean,
absolutely.
If you win this year, I will cancel my moving plans and stay in New York. I promise.
I am hoping. Oh my God, I'm hoping. Right, I really want that to happen. 100%. Yes, 100%.
So you mentioned the other two party lines that you're running on, and I know there's a lot of people in the LP that aren't big fans of fusion voting or running as an independent or something else. I'm personally a big fan. Like, I'm in Indiana right now working on an independent campaign. I think that, like we were talking earlier, the movement is a lot bigger than the party. And I think there's a lot of reasons why it would make a lot of sense. Like for yourself running with Forward or Unite, we've got like Keystone Party in PA. There's people running as independents in states like Tennessee, where it's almost impossible to get on the ballot as anything else. What's your take on fusion voting and it's kind of like using other party lines?
Of course, I don't like fusion voting. Of course, I'd like to have just multiple parties. The problem is the system is so broken. I have to use a system to beat the system, right? But of course, if I could magically do it, I would do what we call the BRO program, which is, as you know, another part, right, the new
program.
2022, the program.
I love it.
B is for ballot access, easier ballot access, right?
Mhm.
If we had easier ballot access, who cares? Right now, to be forward with everyone listening, everyone watching, you actually, for someone to get on the ballot, to do what I'm doing now, you have to be able to not work. You have to be able to raise 6 figures, and you have to have an army of people.
Mhm.
I will have literally hundreds of volunteers crossing this state. What average person who hasn't run before can decide, I want to make changes and get 100 volunteers to run around, hundreds, I have more than hundreds of volunteers running around getting signatures. And it's still going to cost me 6 figures. So who can not just have hundreds of people running around, but also raise 6 figures and not work? Who could do that? You've made it to where the system has made it to where only the wealthy or the establishment can run. That's it. No one else can possibly run. And to be clear, when I ran in 2018, I was the only person not getting a government check. And when I run now, I'll be the only person not getting a government check. That's how it works. Everyone who runs is getting a government check except me.
Yep.
So that's the system we have. So if we didn't have that system, I wouldn't care about, fusion voting. But we have that system. So I have to get a coalition to stop the establishment, right?
Right.
The second piece of that, besides ballot access, is ranked choice voting. It's the R, right? B is ballot access. R is ranked choice voting. If you have ranked choice voting, you vote for whoever you want top of the line, and then your defensive vote is your second vote, right? So if you're a Democrat in New York, which most people are, you hate Republicans. I got it. Okay. So you vote for me first, and then Democrat second. So if I win, life is good. You're happy. You love me. I hope you all love me. But if I don't win, your vote goes to the Democrat. So you block the evil Republican or whatever. If you're a Republican, you block the evil Democrat. So you get both a vote that you care about and your defensive vote. You have that. Why would I need fusion? No need for fusion. Don't even want it. I have those two. And last, open primaries. Open primaries means depending upon where your area is gerrymandered, sometimes you want to vote in a primary that matters to you locally. Right? Now, I know a lot of people who are in parties hate open primaries. Right? I get it. I understand that. But then when you look again, the system we're in, which is a gerrymandered system. So if you happen to be a Republican in a gerrymandered Democrat, area, you probably want to vote a Democratic primary because it's gerrymandered Democrat. Democrat's going to win.
Makes sense.
And there's some of these places that are rigged to where it's, it's Democrat, Republican plus 40, plus 30. That's who's going to win. It.
Yeah.
So even though you may be a Republican in Democratic area or Democrat Republican area, you want to be able to vote where it matters to you to have some say. So you do those 3, fusion voting can go away tomorrow. Don't care.
Fair enough. That last piece about the gerrymandered districts, I obviously knew that this was a thing, but I really got slapped in the face with it a couple weeks ago. I was working in West Houston, and I was working on a state house race in a Republican district, but still within whatever that county is that Houston's in. And the amount of people that I talked to that weren't voting in the Republican primary because they didn't care, all 5 of those candidates were decent, doesn't matter. I'm voting in the Democratic primary for the countywide seats because those are going blue guaranteed. And we need to get our district attorney out as they're having a horrible time with the current district attorney in that county. At least from a Republican standpoint, especially. And so that was probably at least once or twice a day. I would knock on someone's door who is hard red, according to my app. That's nope, sorry, we're voting Democrat this year.
Yes, absolutely. And why? And in the gerrymander, if you get rid of gerrymandering, you can end open primaries. But everything's gerrymandered.
Yeah.
So you have to have it. It's not fair to the people. In New York State, we do not have a working democracy. Think about it. The Democrats select their person, the elites. There's no primary. And then a Democrat wins. So why does you vote? Why bother voting? Yours doesn't count. Not even in a primary.
Yeah.
Right? So Republicans don't have primaries either anymore. So Republican elites pick their guy loses. So who cares? Why bother voting? I get why we have 30% turnout. It clearly doesn't matter.
Yeah. If voting actually worked in New York State, Tiffany Caban would be your district attorney, not Katz.
Yes. Well, for those of you, I was prepared to have a conversation with Tiffany Caban, and people just did not want to hear that. They didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to talk to me. If you are a member of the DSA, I'm still here if you want to talk. Still here.
Hell yeah. I'm going to be in a house where not currently, but next week, the house that I'm staying in right now, I think I'm going to be the only person in this house that isn't a DSA member.
There we go.
Yeah. That's going to be fun. Also, all LP members. So, fun, super fun time. Some of them. But before we wrap up, I want to give you a chance to plug how people can get involved with the campaign, donate. What are you doing coming up? I heard you're going on Kennedy here pretty soon. So
tomorrow night, I will be on Kennedy at 7 p.m. for those who want to watch. Yes, 7:15, I think officially, but her show's at 7, so I'll be on there tomorrow at 7. And I am, of course, going to be traveling if there's no tomorrow during the petitioning time. We're setting up the actual trips this week and next week. So by the 19th, we will have a list of all the places I'll be. I'm going to try to cover as many counties as I can. I'm going to be gone probably 3 to 4 to 5 days every week, out trying to make sure we get that happening. Anything, please go to LarrySharpe.com or I'm on all the interweb things. Just put Larry Sharpe. I'm on all of them. I'm on the Twitter, Instagram, and the Getter, and the Parler, and the TikTok, and all the things. I'm on all the things. Just put Larry Sharpe in the thing. I'll be there. Guaranteed.
That was the most boomer social media pitch I've ever heard. Oh my gosh. Are you actually on Getter? That one's interesting.
All of them.
I tested that out for a couple of days when it first, when that whole big wave happened and they got 250,000 users in a day. I made an account, and then me and my best friend Reed Coverdale decided that we were going to see exactly how free speech of a platform it was, and he was testing their boundaries very thoroughly, getting a bunch of his posts removed, but not his account still. So it was, but within 48 hours, he had almost half of his posts get scrubbed because he was just, all of the terrible things that I literally won't repeat on the show because it would get my show taken down from YouTube also. But it's an interesting site. It's very, very right-wing heavy, and it's always kind of fun.
To be forward, I'm actually very rarely on social media myself.
Mm-hmm.
The team does most of the work. I could not survive without, as I said earlier, if you can't build a team, don't run. Right? You've got to be able to build a team. So the team does most of the work. I love them. Without them, I could not make it happen. The team does most of the work on social media, responds to people most of the time, posts things most of the time. I usually go on when they yell at me and go, Larry, go on and answer this guy. Larry, someone said something. Larry, go, oh, okay, I go do it. So while I'm on Getter, I'm not on Getter.
Fair enough.
So
I'm not sure who this comment is for, but I think either of us would love to have Queen Kathy on the show.
There is no way Queen Kathy is coming on my show. So maybe you can get
I
her,
would
David.
love to have her. Probably not on this show. I'll have her on Fight Club. And
there we go. Yes, I don't think I'm going to get her on that. I would try. I'd love to have her. I would, and I'd be nice to her. Right. John, I would be nice to her. I would be nice to her. Absolutely. 100% I'd be nice to her.
Yeah,
yes.
There's no reason not to. I would love to have her on. And,
well, she's royalty, so I probably should.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah.
Kind of have to. It's kind of rules.
Bow.
So, I'll curtsy. There we go. Yes.
Well, Larry, thank you so much for coming on. I'll let you run. I know you have a policy meeting to get to. But thank you so much for coming. This was great.
Of course. Thanks for having me, my friend. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Again, if you haven't already, you should go follow Larry on all of the things. It's at Larry Sharpe. It's easy to find. Then go to his website, donate $7,000, and then scroll through his social media and every single post he's ever made all the way back to the 2018. And then by the time you're done with all of that, it'll be time for my show next Monday with Spike Cohen and Alex Stein. It's going to be a great show about getting involved locally. So check that out. And until then, keep up the fight.
Shut up and sit down.